I've just learned this lesson so many times that saying no to one client means that the door is open for another client. Solo travel, and particularly and in encouraging and inspiring other people, especially people that are wives and moms and busy lives, that it's 100% okay to be selfish and go away by yourself for a long weekend or a week or whatever the case may be, and just focus purely on yourself. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined. My dream was to meet Elton John. I grew up in a multi-generational Roman Catholic family. And so my announcement that I wanted to meet Elton John and the Roman Catholic religion do not go hand in hand. I have spent, since I was 19 years old to 30 plus years, I've been pursuing this dream. And Elton walked by me and I said, "Hello, Elton." And he said,
I am so happy to have Melissa Thomas on this. And you guys have heard me before. If you do not join your Toastmasters, you are missing out on so many cool connections. We had our leadership meeting this morning at 7 a.m. and we were just talking about how cool our club is and how we have such amazing people. And I've met so many, and you are one of them. And
"Oh, thanks."
how long have you been in Toastmasters? Quite a bit.
8 years, maybe. I always have to ask Danielle because I came in about the same time she came in. So however long she's been in, because you'll understand this. I joined Toastmasters because Danielle told me to, and nobody tells her no. So,
Danielle told me to too. So
yeah, see, there you go.
Get Danielle into some therapy before too long for awesome people around, but it's great opportunities.
Oh, for sure.
So I want to dive in because you have a really unique goal in life, which I think is amazing. And we've heard you just now have kind of, well, since I've been in the club, just kind of turned that into other things. But before that, all I heard was about this goal in life with all of your speeches, and you've kind of gone on that. But before we get into that, because let's go, I love to hear how you grew up as a kid. And because, I was just having another conversation with my daughter the other day, and I was like, no matter, you could have bad parents and have a successful person that comes out of that. You could have great parents and have not so successful, child that comes out of that. So
right.
I truly believe that as we come out, we have already developed our, personality. So tell me who you were there, and has that carried on throughout your years?
Oh, sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to chat with you. So I was born into what would be referred to as a very typical middle-class family. My dad worked for corporate America. My mom was a teacher, and I'm the oldest of three. And I was born in Virginia, but I spent my younger years raised in upstate New York. And then when I was in sixth grade, we moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and I've lived in North Carolina ever since. So I don't know if at this point in my life I can say I'm a native North Carolina, since I've been here since I was 12, but it is what it is. And I was born into a multi-generational Roman Catholic family. So I grew up going to Catholic school. I'm the only person in my family to attend Catholic school from kindergarten all the way through college. And it was just a very typical childhood. I mean, we go on road trips to visit family, and it was school. I got into athletics when I was in, I think, 8th grade. I tried out for the basketball team. And then all through high school, I played volleyball, basketball, softball, kind of back-to-back seasons. Through senior year, the spring semester of my senior year, I did not play softball because I decided that working was a better option than playing. And I couldn't figure out how to go to school all day, go to softball practice, play games, and also have a job. So something kind of had to go. And I wasn't particularly good at any of the sports, but I loved being a member of the team, even if I was a bench warmer, even if I was only winning the game on occasion kind of thing. And one of my funniest stories about playing basketball is that I could not for the life of me learn a play. Like I didn't know. My coach was all the time like, Melissa, we have been over this 100 times. Like, you need to go here and you need to go here. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I get it in practice, but when we're in the game, it's like my mind goes completely blank and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And luckily I had a coach who understood that I wanted to play, even though once I got on the court, I had no idea what I was doing. So he would put me in the game and he would say, your job is to guard number 45. And all you do is guard that person. And then if you can get open to take a shot, your teammate will pass you the ball. But I mean, I wasn't a very good shooter, but I was really good at guarding. And so now when I look back on that, I realized that, there's a common phrase that I use that I've become aware of called hyperfocus. And that is something that I do even now, as an older adult, is that if you give me one thing to do, I can hyper focus on that one thing really, really well. But if there's a lot of chaos going on and there's multiple things that you need me to do, the odds of me doing multiple things in a chaotic environment are very slim to none. And it's kind of funny how, that one thing about basketball kind of has translated through my entire adult life. So yeah, so that's how I grew up. I mean, grew up just kind of very typical. I didn't play sports in college. And I love sports and I love to, what I say play sport, but I don't really play sport. I just like to, I just like to, tennis I'm fairly good at. Bowling I'm not very particularly good at any one sport, but I'll give almost anything a try.
So you went through all this. What did you study in school?
So when I went to college, I was studying to be a veterinarian. So when I was like 5 or 6 years old, I decided that I was going to be a veterinarian. And so I went through all my high school classes were focused on that. Went to college to get an undergraduate degree in biology. And then I was going to transfer to NC State and go to vet school there. And when I was a sophomore in college, I was sitting in one of the upper level biology classes, and I don't really know how to explain it, but just all of a sudden this feeling came over me with, this is absolutely not what I want to do. And by that time, the college environment was set up for me to graduate in 4 years. And in order to do that, you can't change your major sophomore year. But I was like, this is not what I want to do. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do because my whole entire life had been focused on going to college to become a veterinarian. And I hadn't really ever explored any other options. So I went to my academic advisor and I was like, well, I don't want to be a biology major anymore, but I don't know what it is that I want to do. And so she said, well, why don't you just be like a general studies major, and just take classes while you're trying to figure things out. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And about that same time, so I was in a co-ed fraternity and we volunteered at Special Olympics. And I got assigned a child that had cerebral palsy, was in a wheelchair, but was still able to participate in a lot of the sporting things. And so my entire, I guess it was a day-long activity, but at any rate, the entire event, my job was to just help this child. And he had an aide, but the aide was not helping him. The aide's job was not to help him with the sports. That was my job as the volunteer. And I absolutely fell in love with that. I loved helping him. I loved the whole environment of Special Olympics. I loved how, just the culture of Special Olympics, just the whole thing. Like I just had a great day. And I was talking with someone, at this point now, I don't know if it was the aide or whoever, about like, how do I have a career in working with these kinds of kids? Like not necessarily being a one-on-one aide, but like, what does that mean? And that's where I got introduced to, being a teacher and working with this special needs population. And so I went to my advisor, changed my major to special education, was told that I'd have to spend another year in college to get caught up. And I was like, nope, I'm on the 4-year plan. So we need to figure out how to make this happen where I can graduate in 4 years. And I did. I got special permission to take adult education classes at night. And so I took classes during the day. I took classes at night, and I graduated in 4 years. And my first teaching assignment was teaching high school special education. And so my teaching career took me through 8 years. And after 8 years, I was done teaching and just sort of transitioned. I transitioned from teaching full time. By this time I was married, and then we were having kids. And so then I became a stay-at-home mom, and then entrepreneurship fell in my lap, and I started my own company. And, and I've just stuck with entrepreneurship. I'm in year 14 now of owning my own company. So it's just kind of been a whirlwind, but that's how we got here. So.
And tell everyone what you do, because I think it's a pretty cool job. So I would totally do it every day.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I said, tell everyone what you did or what your company is.
Oh, I own and operate a pet sitting business.
I know. So that's super cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
One, I think that you don't get to have to be around humans. So that is super cool. Only their parents, right? And they're adults,
right. Yep.
So it's only a slight
I'm blessed with great clients. That's right. That's right.
So talk to me about that entrepreneurship. Like, you left a teaching degree. And I think that's the hardest thing, because I think, we were always taught, like, okay, you go to school, like there was no other options, like you went to go get a college education. And then I did the exact same thing. I went and got this whole college education. I got the degree with it. And then I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. But man, I got so much, heat from that, because they're like, well, you spent all this money, on this college. Right. And then I was X-ray to food. So completely, you're a teacher to pet business, so, but it kind of goes down your veterinarian path a little bit. So
it does. Yeah. So I quit teaching. So to kind of back up, I almost quit teaching after my first year of teaching. And because what you learn in college about teaching is not what actual teaching is. So I just had a really hard time with it. Some of it was the culture of the school that I was at, just in terms of it was in a very small town. It was a lot of the good old boy network type of thing. It was a lot of the teachers that I taught with grew up in that town. They went to college, got their teaching degree, and then came back to teach at the same high school where they went to. And also a lot of my, I still always call them my kids. A lot of my kids, my students, they were multi-generational of people who lived in that town. And so I come in completely as the outsider. And I remember talking to my students about how, well, I live 30 minutes away from work. So I commute to work every day. And they would say, well, where does your family live? I'm like, well, my family lives 3 hours away from me. And they were like that blew their mind. Like that I didn't live in the same town as my family. And I'm like, well, not only that, but my extended family, like we live all up and down the East Coast. Like we don't even live. And they were like, well, I don't understand that. But on the same hand, like I didn't understand how you are born in a town and you live in a town and you like never ever leave that town. Like I don't understand that part of it either. So I came in as the outsider. I did have some wonderful teachers that were my mentors and helped me along the way. But there was just a lot of the culture clash sort of thing. And so my mentor teacher was the one who said, everybody wants to quit after their first year. And she had been a teacher for 20 something years. So she said, give it another year. And after another year, if you want to quit, then maybe teaching isn't the right fit for you. I'm like, okay. So I stayed another year, but I did quit after that second year. And I quit after that second year, not really with an intention of going back to teaching. And I was working at, where was I working? I was working at the YMCA as like an after school staff member. Like I wasn't in charge of the program or anything, but I was working there at the YMCA. And, you know, this, I love this story because this was my introduction to connections and networking, even though I wasn't being intentional at all about networking. But as somebody who knew somebody contacted me and said, there's a special education teaching position open at the local Catholic high school. Would you be interested in interviewing for that position? And I was like, well, not really interested in going back to teaching, but let me go for the interview and just kind of see, see what happens. And I went to the interview and a couple of things happened. The first thing that happened was as soon as I walked into the building through the doors of that building, I had this overwhelming sense of this is where I was supposed to be. I haven't even had the interview yet. I just had this like, you are home, type of feeling. And so, I met the person at the front desk and I was introduced to other people and everybody was so kind and so nice. And I know now that that's an energy. So I'm very responsive to energy. And so I know now that that was an energy thing, that like that building had good energy. And so I went to the interview and, the principal at the time was a Roman Catholic nun. And she sat me down and she was very, very sweet, but she was also your stereotypical Catholic school nun. She was 5 foot nothing and sat me down and handed me a piece of paper. And she said, before we even start this interview, this is what your salary will be. And if you don't like this, then we don't need to have the interview. And at first I was very taken aback, but then I was like, oh, that's actually really smart. Like, why is she going to spend an hour interviewing me only for me to say, no, I'm sorry, that's not that, So I took a look at the salary and it was significantly less than what I had been making at the public school. But there was also, again, even sitting in that interview, that feeling of this is where I need to be. And so I passed the paper back to her and I said to her, I don't know if you will understand this, but right now I'm feeling like I don't care what that number is on this piece of paper. This is where I'm supposed to be. I felt it as soon as I walked in the door. And she said, okay. And we continued with the interview and she offered me the job and I started the following that August, I started teaching there and I was there for 4 years. And had I not met my husband, I would probably still be there today because I absolutely love that job. It was absolute the place that I was meant to be. And it reaffirmed for me my love for teaching, being back in that, in that environment.
So do you think the reason why you felt like that home, like that's for the reconnection with teaching, or did you ever find out what there was more to that you were supposed to be?
It was, I think it was just the reconnection to teaching because I love teaching. I mean, like whatever. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why, as a speaker, when I speak, I want to make sure that the audience leaves with a little nugget of wisdom or something that they can take away from them. Because I believe that the knowledge that we have is supposed to be shared, so, that sort of thing. But it was also a culture that I was used to. So when I was teaching in public school, there was a definite, separation of church and state thing going on. And it was in that I struggled to kind of get used to that because I had even in college, we said prayers before class every day and went to church service and, and all that stuff. And so to be in an environment where I had to be careful, let's just say about speaking about God and religion and that sort of thing. And even if I was teaching a historical thing and there was some religious aspect of it, there were very strict guidelines on what I could and couldn't talk about and all that kind of stuff. And so I think being back in the Catholic school setting, that to me was I was home, I was in a very familiar environment and that. And So when I met my husband, we met online in 1999 and we met in person in February of 2000 and we were married in May of 2001. So it was very much a whirlwind type of situation.
How did you
But
know?
25 years, 25 years later, here we are. So it worked out. But he was stationed active duty in the Marine Corps and he was stationed at Camp Lejeune. And my joke always is they wouldn't move Camp Lejeune to Charlotte for my convenience. So we had some very serious conversations about me saying to him, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my job. I don't want to, and him saying, well, I can't leave. Like the only way I can leave is to get out of the Marine Corps. And at that point, he wasn't ready to get out of the Marine Corps. And so, and the 5-hour commute we knew was just not going to be, conducive to trying to have a relationship. So I always joke about how I didn't really give him an ultimatum, but I told him that I was not leaving my job unless we got married. And he like within a month we were talking about having serious conversations about getting married. And it's funny because we met and married within 18 months. And
Right.
so many people were like in my life were like, Melissa, this is crazy. Like, what you don't like, cause we got married and then we dated. Like, I mean, it was kind of, cause even when we first met up until the time we got married, because we lived 5 hours apart and because of our schedules, because I worked weekends sometimes, it's not like we spent every weekend with each other, so we
Right.
just got to know each other. We had a lot of phone conversations, a lot of emails back and forth. So we kind of got to know each other that way. But it was the same kind of situation where, when I walked into that building that, when we met online, I had kind of an inkling that he was the one. And then by the time we got to the point where we could meet in person, because he was on deployment when we met online. So he came home. And by the time he came back to the States, we were in agreement that if we met in person and could stand to be in the same room with each other, then we should date because like the phone conversations and everything else were going so well, and so we did. And when I met him in person, I knew, I mean, I would have married him right then and there when I met him in person because it was
How
like
did
this
you know?
instant. How did I know? I mean, I
No.
know.
Everyone's
Yeah.
gonna ask, how did you know? Like,
How did I know? It's a feeling. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a feeling. And so, yeah, so we made plans we went back and forth about when we should get married. I'm like, well, obviously we have to wait till like the end of the school year. I didn't want to get married in the middle of the school year. And basically the Marine Corps told us that we could get married on May 5th. And so that's when he would be available to get married. So, and then so we got married in May of 2001 and then September 11th happened and he got deployed for 7 months to the Middle East and came home and retired that following October. So he retired after 20 years of service because he knew that the campaign in the Middle East was going to be, just a constant rotation of him being home and being deployed and home and being deployed. And I did not grow up in a military family. So um, we joke about you're married to a Marine, but you're also married to the Corps, and being married to the Marine Corps is a tough thing, especially around the time of 9/11. And so we have a joke that our first year of marriage was a piece of cake because he was gone for most of it, so it just, I mean, it just, the sarcasm of it, just kind of helps us deal with it. But it also, I mean, I learned a lot in that year about what it was like, what it meant to be a Marine spouse. And then, so we moved to Wilmington and, same situation. I got a teaching job. I started out, being at one of the local Catholic schools and it was the same thing. Like I walked into the building for my interview and had that feeling of this is where I'm supposed to be. And the principal said, well, we don't have any teaching positions open for you because I wanted middle school. I didn't want to go from teaching high school to teaching elementary school. I wanted 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. And I told her, point blank, I said, that's fine. I said, but I know that this is where I'm supposed to be. So what job do you have? And she said, well, you can be the after school director and substitute teacher. And I'm like, that's great, because at that point in time, we didn't have the boys yet. So if I had to substitute teach all day and then go directly into my after school job and be at school from 7 in the morning until 6 at night, like, it was fine, because, it was just my husband and I, and he had an hour commute to work. And so he was gone, 12 hours a day. So that was fine. So, yeah, so I did that. And then, once he retired from the Marine Corps, he went through a couple different job opportunities before landing at, Duke Energy in Southport. And so in 2004, we moved here to Southport, and then our boys were born. And then I fell into, the job of being an entrepreneur literally fell in my lap. It was a friend of a friend who called and said, my pet sitter canceled last minute, because at the time we had 4 dogs, and they said, can you watch my friend's dogs? I'm like, I like, how hard could that be? And so I did. And when the owner came back, she said, do you do this as a business? And I answered, yes, I do. And at the time it was not a business, but that's just sort of, but it worked out great for me, because at the time, my husband and I had just gotten on a plan to get better with money and become debt free. And we were having lots of conversations about whether I would go back to work either as a teacher or some other, just to generate extra income into the household so we could get out of debt. And we were just always like, well, which parent goes and picks up the kids from school if the kids are sick, or which parent stays home with the kids if they don't have school, all that kind of stuff. And so the fact that the entrepreneur opportunity really just kind of fell in my lap was an answer to a prayer. It had no inkling before that of like, well, it makes sense to start my own business. It just sort of happened, and I just took it and ran with it.
I'm curious about the dog business. So do you do overnight stays?
Only if I have to. So like this past weekend, I stayed overnight because of the weather. So generally speaking, I do not. I go over 4 times a day. So that's early morning, lunchtime, dinner time, bedtime. Let the dog out, feed them, play with them, whatever, hang out, whatever the case may be. And yeah, I just, I started literally just bootstrapping. I had no marketing plan. It was all word of mouth. And then as my boys got older, and, I was able to take on more jobs because I could leave them home. When I first started, I only did 1 job at a time, because sometimes I'd have to bring them with me, and work around my husband's schedule. I mean, we just made it work. And so as they've gotten older, and I could take on more jobs, and I did. And I only pet sit within, about a 10-mile radius of my house. So it works.
No, that's perfect. I was going to ask that, like, what's your mileage? Because, if you're going over there 4 times, then you can probably take on how many clients a day? I
can do, it depends. Like if it's dogs, I can only do 3 a day. But if I have a cat, if I have a household that they only have a cat, the cats don't care what time I come over. They actually don't even care that I'm in the house most of the time, So if it's just cats, then I can take on that extra, but really, because I like to spend about 20 to 30 minutes each visit. And so it depends. It just really depends. I mean, that's been a scheduling lesson that I've had to learn about, which, how far away do they live and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but generally speaking, I average, 3 jobs a day. So
that's super cool. And is it only cats and dogs, or do you venture to anything else?
I've had bearded dragons. I've had ducks. I don't do horses. Of course, in my area, there's not a lot of people, there's not a lot of people with horses around. And I have a client with a saltwater aquarium. So, I've did that. That's kind of cool. So ducks, bearded, and chickens. Yeah. So, so it's, most of my clients are clients with multi-pet households. They have multiple dogs, multiple cats. Because I prefer to cater to those families, but also to take care of dogs, especially who cannot go to a kennel. So when I interview with clients for the first time, that's one of my questions is, can your dog go to a boarding kennel? And if they say yes, then I tell them point blank, I would much rather you do that, because I would rather you put if your dog is fine in a boarding kennel, do that, because then that frees up a space for a client who has a dog that cannot go to a boarding kennel. So, cause I don't have employees. I don't want employees. I don't have employees. And so it's not like if I get too many jobs, then I can say, well, my employee so-and-so can cover that job, that sort of thing. So, and that's been I've learned a lot as an entrepreneur, because I've learned that, not every client is my client. Not every, it just is, I've been very fortunate that in 14 years, I've only had to fire 2 clients, and it was because of the person, not because of the dog, so, but I mean, but that's something that I've had to learn. I think that, when I talk to other entrepreneurs and I see them, taking on every single client, I'm like, look, I know you need money, but I also need you to know that not every client is your client. And that's from a financial perspective, that's a hard lesson to learn, because when I tell a client no, my base rate is $40 a day. So when I tell a client no, I know that I'm not earning that money. And as an entrepreneur, money is important, because if I don't work, I don't get paid, so, but also I know, and I've just learned this lesson so many times, that saying no to one client means that the door is open for another client. And I've never ever in 14 years had a problem where I wasn't ever making money, because that's just how the universe works.
I love it. I was just like sitting here. I should have took notes along, but I was like, okay, so you said that on one job, you didn't care what you got paid, and you still took the job because of the fee right there. The second job, you're like, they didn't have a job for you. You're like, well, I'll just take whatever,
That's right. Yep.
And then pet sitting, you're like, I just do what I want, and it still works. Right. So,
and it still works. I mean,
I think there's like a huge lesson with that, and even with your husband, you're just like, here's my non-negotiables, and you still made it work. So it's like, I don't know if that's how your whole life has gone, but it's just like, no, this is just what I'm going to do. And it's like, not say you don't care, but you just have such a, like you said, the universe will take care of it. And most people don't have that mindset. They're going to fret over something.
Right. Right. And I don't know, I don't have a distinctive memory of when I learned that lesson, that the universe will just take care of it. But I've just had that lesson repeated to me so many times throughout my life, that especially now, at the stage I am in my life, there are days that I'm just like, whatever, like somebody, at our meeting on Tuesday when I was speaking, Janet said, are you ready? And I was like, well, words will come out of my mouth. So whatever. I mean, I've just learned to, not to say that I don't get anxious about things and I don't stress about things, but I have learned that, the universe is going to do what the universe is going to do. And I don't have any control over really what, I can plan, and I can have all these plans, and I can set goals, and I can do all these things, but really it's either going to be in alignment or it's not. And I've just learned the lesson so many times that things are so much easier when you're in alignment than trying to constantly push against that. So
I agree. So I teased in the very beginning about that you're already lightening up with us. Have a very unique bucket list.
I do.
And so, okay, you got to tell everyone what it is.
Let's talk about that. Yeah. So, my big bucket list dream is to meet Elton John, and that I have spent since I was 19 years old. So 30 plus years I've been pursuing this dream. And the long version of the short version of a very long story is that I've seen Elton John in concert 62 times. I've gotten his autograph several times. I've met every member of his band. I've met every member of his support staff. I've met his husband, David Furnish, many times. And the closest I've gotten to meeting him was the opening of Tammy Faye on Broadway. I was in the theater and I knew Elton was going to be there. And Elton walked by me and I said, "Hello, Elton." And he said hello back. And that's the closest I've gotten.
You told me the other day when I asked you about this, I'm like, so you did meet him? And you're like, no, it's not the
No,
way
not
I
really.
pictured
No.
it.
Right. Cause that's the thing is that, it's my very specific dream, is like a formal introduction, like Elton, this is Melissa, this is Elton. And for me to be able to shake his hand and have, I mean, just to say, I've been pursuing this dream to meet you, type of thing. But if, because he's not touring anymore, since he's retired. So my goal every year is always, I'm going to meet Elton John. And since he stopped retiring, it really has been a thing for me to just trust in the universe, because I have no plan. Like, it's always been, how are you going to meet Elton John? Where I'm going to go to the concert. So I'm going to put myself in a position where I can meet him and whatever. And now that he's not touring, and especially since he lives in England, I mean, it's not like he lives up the road from me, that sort of thing. So I'm always looking for opportunities. I'm always ready. I mean, I have a passport, I have a savings account. Like if something comes up that I'm always just ready for the next opportunity, to be able to do that. But yeah, so I fell in love with Elton's music when I found a cassette tape of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and just fell in love with the music. And I was in middle school when that happened. And then I was 19 when I went to my first concert. And, like most things in my life that I just decided, it just was at that concert. And yeah, I mean, I can remember this as vividly as it happened yesterday. I could just remember being at that concert and just thinking, I want to meet this person, and we do not come from a music family. We have there was just nothing. And so there was a problem, right? I wanted to meet him, and how am I going to meet him? Well, I'm going to meet him by going to the concerts. And so I just went to every concert that I could possibly go to. I've traveled all over the United States, to be able to go to the concerts. I've met some awesome people along the way. I've made some great friends along the way. And one of the things that I've learned, and I speak about this a lot of times, is that, when I first sort of announced that my dream was to meet Elton John, as I've referenced before, I grew up in a multi-generational Roman Catholic family. And so my announcement that I wanted to meet Elton John and the Roman Catholic religion do not go hand in hand. They're a little better now, but at the time it was absolutely, no, you cannot have that be your big dream, and I had to learn at a very early age, like, what is important to me, and so there were many, many years throughout my early 20s and even into my 30s that I believed that I could be a practicing Catholic and also love Elton John. Like I held those two things together. And, I got into a lot of, religious conversations with people about it and all that. And I finally just got to the point where I'm like, this is what I've decided, is that I'm going to have both. Both things can be true. I don't have to not like someone just because my religion says not to like that person because of the lifestyle that he leads. Like, that part never made sense to me, that sort of thing. And so I did it kind of like, I had people point blank tell me that my dream was dumb and it was stupid and it was never going to come true. And why are you wasting all this money, going to concerts and trying to pursue it? 'Cause it's never, ever going to happen. And there were times, especially as I got older, that I was like, I'm going to do it to spite these people. Like, I'm going to do it just to prove them wrong, And so, it just is, I mean, it's been a great thing. It's always kind of been like, that's what people know me most for, is like, oh yeah, Melissa, that's the Elton John lady, that sort of thing. But it's been a great thing. And even if the opportunity never comes about that I ever get to meet him in person, I have zero regrets for pursuing the dream in the first place. Because it's taught me so many, great life lessons. It's been a great vehicle for personal growth. And then, I fell in love with traveling as a result of it. And so that's kind of been my segue. Like when Elton announced that he was retiring from touring, one of my friends said, "What are you going to do when he's not doing concerts anymore?" And my immediate response was, "Well, I'm going to travel because I love traveling." And like right after I said it, I was like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." Sort of thing. So, so that's kind of my thing now is solo travel in particularly, and encouraging and inspiring other people, especially you know people that are wives and moms and busy lives, that it's 100% okay to be selfish and go away by yourself for a long weekend or a week or whatever the case may be, and just focus purely on yourself, because then that way, for me it's like the you can't pour from an empty cup, kind of thing. So for me, the solo travel is the opportunity for me to go away and kind of get re-energized and refocused. And then when I come back, I can come back with 100% ready to give back into my family and back into my business and back into my volunteering and all the other things that I do. So
you went right into that, because you just did a speech this past week, and it was on solo traveling, which I never even thought was like, after I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, there is so many people who do not solo travel because of everything that you explained in your speech on Tuesday. And I was like, man, what I love about you is that you have definitely identified your niches. And what's so cool about your niches is that they are truly niches. You know what I mean? Like, your audience, who you are, how to speak to them, and you live it. You actually live everything that you're saying and talking about. And there's not, I think with the whole social media, I bring this up all the time, but especially now with AI, because I got tricked last night. I saw something and my husband's like, "That was AI." And I'm like, "No, it wasn't." And he was like, and so I think as things keep progressing, in the future, that this connectivity and traveling solo and everything that you're doing right now with connection is going to be such a unique experience, that you're just like right in that right era.
Yeah. And, it's funny because nothing I've ever done professionally in my life has been focused on what is the market doing and how can I fit into the market? It's just been, I'm just going to do what I do and, and see how things roll. And so far that marketing strategy has worked out really well. So, it just is, and I know that you and Don do this, but when you talk about doing like a 1 year, a 5 year, a 10-year plan, and not that there's an immediate action step that's going to be taking place, but my pet sitting business and my travel don't go hand in hand. I have to be home in order to run my business. And so last year, I had a lot of conversations with people about like, how does that work? Like, do I sell the business? Do I keep the business, but hire an employee to work when I want to go away, so then I wouldn't be the sole owner operator. I would be the owner manager and I would have employees and all that. And it ultimately boiled down to like, no, my decision is when I'm ready to travel, because I want to travel full time, more when I say full time, like we're still going to have a home base, but we'll be traveling more than I travel now. When it comes time for me to make that transition, I'm just going to sell the business and just be done with it, because I don't want to, I don't want to be like, if I want to go to Europe for 3 months, okay, I don't want to be in Europe for 3 months on my traveling and also trying to manage my worker, whoever's running the pet sitting business here. I just feel like that would be too much to try to do. And so, that's probably a 5 or 10 year plan. I mean, I don't have any plans right now. The business isn't going up for sale tomorrow, cause I love it. And for right now, it's a great source of income for me and for my family. And I'm not ready to let go of that yet. And so, but I'd still need a source of income. And so that's where, okay, well, what does that look like? And that looks like, that's what this year is focused on. So I'm going to a travel conference in June and to try to figure out like, what is my thing? Like, am I going to be a travel writer? Am I going to be a travel blogger? Am I going to, um, you know, take people on trips? So there's a lot of things. I reference this in my speech. My favorite place to go is New York City. And people say to me all the time, oh my God, I could never go to New York City by myself. I'm like, I do it all the time. Like you absolutely can do it. And so I've had people say to me, the next time you go to New York City, I want to go with you because I
You're
want to go to New York City.
You can be a traveling
Yeah.
chaperone.
Yeah, traveling chaperone or like group trips. So there are people in the travel space that I follow and their business is doing group trips. So they plan everything. And basically if you're participating, you pay your money and you go cause everything is already planned out for you. And I love the planning part and I love, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm just like, this whole year is just kind of focused on like, what does that look like? And then, like let's say I decide, okay, travel chaperone is going to be my thing. Well, then I have to try that out to see if I'm going to like it or not. So because I might do it and I might be like, oh my God, no. Like when I go to New York City, it just has to be a solo trip because this is
I don't think so.
It's too much. Yeah.
All right. So this was a lot to unload. I mean,
I know it's a lot. Yeah. It's a quick 45 minutes.
So I guess either advice, sum it up in one sentence, future, anything. I mean, if you had to go out on one message, what would it be?
So my one message is actually a quote by Henry David Thoreau that is just like, it's kind of like my motto or whatever you call it, but it's go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you've imagined. And my greatest source of inspiration for that, I tell people all the time that if you're feeling stuck or if you're feeling like, well, I want to live the life I've imagined, but I don't even imagine what that life looks like, that sort of thing. The Greatest Showman movie is one of my favorite reference points per se for people to watch that movie, but to watch it with a mindset of really whatever you dream. Rudy is another one, but I was actually listening to part of the Greatest Showman soundtrack this morning, so that's fresh in my head because I listen to some portion of that soundtrack almost every single day because it just gets me energized and focused and just anything that you dream, anything that you imagine can happen. But you can't just imagine it. Like I couldn't have just said, I want to meet Elton John and then just sit back and wait for the universe to work its magic, right? Like I had to go out and take actionable steps in order for things to happen. So I firmly believe in you can do whatever you want. You can have whatever you want, but you have to put that out in the universe. You have to talk about it because somebody somewhere, I believe that somebody somewhere knows how I can meet Elton John. I just haven't met that person yet. Like I've met a lot of people, but I just haven't met that particular person yet. So that's why I just keep talking about it. I just keep sharing my story, just keep talking about it. And then you also just have to let the universe do its magic and, help to bring things together and be open to, because the way that you imagined things would work out is probably not the way that it was intended to work out. And so like, I never would have imagined when I set out to meet Elton John that the closest I would get would be at the premiere of a Broadway play. Like I was always like, oh, it'll happen at a concert, well, it didn't happen at a concert. So I had to be open to doing different things, to try to get different results, that sort of thing. And so I think my big message is just that, if you have a dream, you need to get after it and not just keep sitting around going, I wish, I wish, I wish, because wishing and hoping is not an actionable plan, so just got to go out and get after it.
It was, I love how you said all that, because I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and that's what they said. They're like, The Secret book came out, and everyone thinks that, I can just sit back here and I can think about it and it's just going to come to me. And they're like, no, you have to go out and take actionable items. Yes, you still need to do all that, but you still have to put in a little bit of effort to it. You just can't sit on your couch watching TV and think that this is all going to happen. So,
right.
I loved how you summed that all up. All right. If they want to find your business online, where do they find you at?
So my pet sitting business is melissathe.sitter.com. And, but my other, my blog and my other website is melissaspage.com. And I'm on, I'm on Instagram as Melissa's Page, Melissa's Page 1410 is my Instagram. But I'm not really on Facebook and Instagram. That's another part of my yearly goals, is to detach myself from social media. So the website has all the contact information there. So melissathe.sitter.com, melissaspage.com are my two landing spots.
All right. If you know of Mr. Elton John, or you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Right. That's the way it's going to work.
We got to get the final. He's not getting any younger, so we got to make this happen.
Right. That's right. That's right.